Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Ship and Read. Today I'll be doing a video that I haven't done ever actually, and that is talking about series that I will not continue. So if you're new to this channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below as well as hit the notification bell. But I'm excited to dive into some of the series that I read, picked up, and honestly just was not wowed by it and don't think I would just continue on the series because I'd rather spend my time reading other books instead. So I do have 10 series to discuss in this video. I'm not going to spend too much going through what each book is about, what each series is about. I'm just going to briefly talk about it and kind of just talk about why I am not continuing on the series. But the first book over here is The Gilded Ones. I had such high hopes for this book. It just looks so freaking beautiful and it just had such a promising premise, but unfortunately I felt like the execution was very subpar and it honestly dragged a lot of times in the book, and I just kind of lost interest pretty early on. I feel like for this book I felt like I was trying to finish it for the sake of finishing it rather than actually enjoying what I was reading. Then the next series here is Heart of Thorns. Honestly, this series was okay. Like, it was not bad. It was not great. It was very subpar. I think I gave this book 3 stars, but because it was so average, I don't feel the need to continue on the series and just spend more time reading a book, continue on the series that I really don't care too much about. The next series here is one that probably has more of a controversy around it, and that is Ace of Shades, because I feel like most people really enjoy this book, enjoy the series overall. I personally didn't care much for it. I felt like the characters were okay, the storyline was okay, the execution was okay, the writing was okay, everything was just average. So for me, I was like, well, I'd rather spend my time reading more interesting books than book that I just was very mediocre about. It was not a bad series though, don't get me wrong. I thought it was okay read. It didn't wow me that I don't have a need and urge to continue on with the rest of the series. Then the next series is one that also has some controversy, but I feel like majority of the people agree with this, and this is Deadly Education. I gave this series, the book, 2 stars, and I remember distinctly that I didn't like this book at all. Like, there was so much like issues with the racism in it, as well as a number of other things. I personally didn't really see too much in terms of the Asian side, because I didn't believe that there were like multiple instances of racism that were towards Black people as well as Asian people. And on the Asian side, as a person who can identify as Asian, I didn't really see an issue with it, but I felt like the story itself, like the characters, the story, it was a hot mess. So for that reason, I was not interested in continuing on the series, which is honestly kind of disappointing because I really enjoyed her other books. For example, Spinning Silver was one of my favorite books a few years ago, so I was really disappointed. But I feel like also the writing style changed dramatically from a very lyrical Russian folklore kind of style to more of a fantasy magic school system style, and I guess her writing just didn't really suit, I guess, like the way how this book was versus the Russian folklore, beautiful, gorgeous prose type of style. Then the next book over here is Infinity Quartz. This was also a middle of the road book for me. I really didn't care either way. I think I gave this book 3 stars. I felt like I had high expectations because I thought it sounded really freaking cool about the AI, you know, going into like the afterlife and having the AI kind of being the dominant person or the dominating like overseer, I guess. I thought it was a really cool freaking concept, but I think the execution and some of the plot became very convoluted towards the end, and I wasn't a huge fan of the characters either. So for me, I was like, this is okay, but I'm not intrigued enough to continue. The next series I have on here is one that's honestly such a disappointment, and that is Keeper of Night. I had such high hopes with this series because it's literally about this Reaper slash Shinigami person, or Reaper Shinigami person, where she literally has 2 sets of powers. 1 Reaper powers and 2 Shinigami powers, which apparently are very different. And for some reason, like, there was just so much weirdness in terms of like, why was she ridiculed because of her Asian side when she has 2 sets of powers versus just 1? Like, in terms of like racism, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that, but I don't understand why she's shunned from a society that really craves or like really catered towards like powerful people when she literally has 2 sets of power, which means she has double the power. So it's like, I just felt like the author just didn't do a really good job of explaining certain things. A lot of things didn't really make a lot of sense. So I don't know, I felt like I had such high expectations because the premise sounded really freaking cool, but I don't think it was really well executed. So the next series I have over here is the Bone Spindle. I think that this, from what I remember, this series was middle of the road for me as well. I don't remember why this is even a series, because from what I remember and the way how the book ended, I thought it concluded. There might have been something left over, but it wasn't enough for me to garner an interest to continue on with the series. So I felt like, meh, like why would I continue on reading a book or a series that I'm like very meh about. This video is honestly going way faster than I expected. The next one over here is Trello Lightning. I had high expectations as well because so many people kept raving about it, but it's funny because so many people raved about the first book, but no one really raved about the second book. And I can kind of see why, because I feel like the first book was good. I actually really enjoyed it, but for some reason it never, like, I don't have the urge to continue on with the series. Like, I feel like the way how the first book ended, yes, there were some, you know, open-ended things, loose ends for sure, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, I need to know what's going to happen next. So for me, I'm like, do I want to continue the series? And I'm like, not really, because I have so many other books I want to spend time on instead, that I just made the decision basically to not continue on with it, even though the first book was actually pretty darn good. I really enjoy the characters. I really like the mythology, or like the cultural aspects of the Native Americans. I thought was really freaking cool, but that was kind of it really. The next series is one that I'm also really disappointed by, and that's Natural History of Dragons. I don't know, I thought the way how this book was laid out to me and the way how I read it, I felt like this is exactly my type of book. I like, you know, more of a dry character sometimes, and I love dragons. So for me, it's like literally it's a memoir of this lady who is just talking about her adventures, you know, becoming a dragon like expert person. And so there was just so much potential with this, but for some odd reason I never really got into it when I was listening to an audiobook. I don't know if it's because it's an audiobook and I just never connected with the characters, or because of the narrator. I have no idea, but for some absurd reason I just never connected with the series. And so I feel like in theory this series should have been freaking amazing for me, but in reality it was just an okay read. Not to mention that at the very end there was one character that I really freaking liked, and something happened to this character that I'm like, well, I feel like I don't even know if this character will show up in next books. And so it's like even more disappointing there. Okay, then the last and final series I want to mention for this video is Skin of the Sea. This book sounded so freaking cool. It's basically like a Little Mermaid mythology that is mixed with West African mythology, and it sounded really cool as a mashup, but in reality it was just an okay read. I felt like I was reading it for the sake of reading it. I did talk about a lot more in my magical readathon vlog. I will link that above and down below. I read a bunch of books and that was one of them, and I don't know, I felt like it was not a bad read. It just wasn't engaging, and it didn't really catch my attention that I want to continue on the series. So while I thought it was an okay read, it wasn't amazing. So, you know, but I just felt like it's such a stunning cover, and the execution though is just like, sometimes though, like, I just have such high expectations for certain books, especially when they're the first in the series, that if they're not like immediately like wowing, it's like, do I want to continue on the series? I have literally like this entire shelf right here, like these few shelves are literally all the series that I have completed books for that I've not read. So like for me, I need to be very like picky and choosy in terms of like which series to continue, just because I have so many that I'm like, I need time to read these, and like I haven't gotten around to it yet. So anyways, that's all to say for this video. Let me know down below if you have read any of these series before, and if you have, what do you guys think about them? Do you guys agree with my sentiment here? Should I give any of these series a second shot? Sometimes I feel like maybe it's the first book just not riveting, and maybe it'll pick up as the book series goes on, but I feel like more often than not that is not the case, because second book usually has like second book syndrome, etc. So it's very like, I don't know, I'm just, let me know down below in the comments, guys. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are. But that's all to say for this video. As always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. If you'd like to see more content of me, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as hit the notification bell. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.